But the two biggest false messiahs were someone called Shabbatai Tzvi and Jacob Frank, 1700s. There was widespread rabbinic opinion, I mean from Africa to Northern Europe to Asia, that Shabbatai Tzvi was the Messiah. He turned to Islam. Then Jacob Frank claimed to be the reincarnation of Shabbatai Tzvi. He turned to Roman Catholicism. These people became so crazy, they began taking something called Divakut. Divakut is the Jewish equivalent or the Hasidic equivalent of walking in the Spirit, clinging to God, from the word devik. Like Adam and Eve should become one flesh, a husband shall cling to his wife, the word devik. It's called Divakut in Judaism. Orthodox Jews are trying to practice Divakut, cling to God. And they said, to know the depths of redemption, you must know the depth of sin. Now notice how that perverted the truth. The New Testament says, the Messiah, who knew no sin, became sin. Only by not having sin could he pay the price for ours. They said, no, to get redemption, we have to know the depths of sin. So they actually began having public sex orgies in Poland in front of the Gentiles. That's how crazy they became. Well, when these messiahs proved to be false, as the others did, there was a very stoic reaction in Judaism. And Judaism became the religion of the yeshiva, the cheder. It was only for the learned. It became very rigid. Yeshiva. But only wealthy Jews could send their kids to yeshivas. Most Jews lived in shtetls, little ghettos. So the people became alienated from their religion. This alienation paved the way for the Hasidic movement, for what Baal Shem Tov did. He was like a charismatic Jew. Like they had the charismatic movement within Judaism. That's what the Hasids were, mystical. Okay? What like the vineyard was for the California, that was their vineyard. You know, everything was experiential, everything was based on mysticism. And they would take the Bible out of all context and so forth. Okay. The fastest growing, but not the biggest, Hasidic movement is the Lubavitch, also known as Chabad. And they claim that Rabbi Menachem Schneerson is the Messiah. You'll see posters of him in Antwerp, Belgium, and in New York, and in Manchester, England, and in Israel. Melech Mashiach, King Messiah. Now they have a problem. He had died and he had no son and no son-in-law who has his spirit. The Hasids can only go to God through the Rebbe, through the Tzaddik. They don't have one anymore. So they believe he must have been the Messiah. Not all of them. I was witnessing to the Lubavitch rabbi in Palm Springs about a week ago. And he was really angry because he couldn't answer the questions. I was in Tel Aviv at Ben Gurion Airport, where they have a table to put on tefillin until my mother was Gentile. I just talked to them, and they had the sign, Melech Mashiach. This is all in Hebrew, of course. And I said to them, well, what are you going to do? He's dead. You have no Rebbe. You have no way to get to God now. Hu Mashiach hu metu bekever shelo. Ma atem yosim, ma atem osim achshav? Ein lehem shum Rebbe. And he said to me in Hebrew, Hu yakum hamatim. He's going to raise from the dead. I said, what? He said, he's going to raise from the dead. I said, let me get this straight. You believe that the Jewish Messiah has to come, has to die, and he has to raise from the dead? Ken, yeah. That's all I wanted to know. So do I. At least we agree on something. You got that right. But the real false Messiah is yet to come. It leaves us in a sorry state. There is no doubt in my mind that the Jews are back in Israel in fulfillment of prophecy. I believe in the right of the Jews to be in the land. I believe Islam is demonic. I believe Christians need to recognize the prophetic significance of the Jews being in the land. I believe the stage is being set for the return of Christ. But they are back in that land to wait for Antichrist, false Messiah who's going to con them. He'll sell them a bill of goods and they'll swallow it. If you reject the true Christ, you'll follow a false one. However, that's not only the Jews. That is much of Christendom. They've rejected the true Christ and they're going to follow a false one. Israel is regathered for a picnic, a blessing. No, they are regathered for Hatekufat Hatzorat Yaakov, the time of Jacob's trouble. The 70th week of Daniel. And I see a lot of things happening. I see people saying, we have to bring the Jews back to Israel. I agree. They have to go back to fulfill prophecy. Brad Antolovich was told, just give them humanitarian aid. Don't witness to them. Guess who told them that? The Israeli government? No. A rabbi? No. A Christian organization who wants to bless Israel. My wife's grandparents were murdered by the